Over on Jaguar Gatorade, a new college football video is out. In this one, we talk about the 1988 Sun Bowl between Alabama and Army, and how a disastrous TV decision to play the game alongside an NFL playoff game resulted in horrible ratings. Click the card in the upper right corner to watch. And now, on with our feature presentation. On April 21st, 2022, the football world lost a legend when Daryle Lamonica, best known as the quarterback for the Oakland Raiders, passed away at the age of 80. And to say that Lamonica left a lasting legacy on the game and on this sport would be a massive understatement. To list all of Lamonica's accomplishments and accolades would require me to make this video over an hour long. He made it to 5 AFL All-Star games and Pro Bowls over his career, where he spent 4 seasons with the Buffalo Bills and 8 with the Oakland Raiders. He truly earned the nickname the Mad Bomber because of how good his deep ball was. And perhaps most notably, he guided the Oakland Raiders to their first Super Bowl appearance in franchise history, as he was the starting quarterback when they made it to Super Bowl II before falling at the hands of the Green Bay Packers. There are plenty of legendary stories and moments from the legendary career of Daryle Lamonica. But here's one that you might not know about that truly exemplifies just how good he was, and how much of an inspiration he was to millions of football fans across the country. We've talked at length on this channel about incredibly gutsy performances, where a player seemingly comes out of nowhere to play despite a brutal injury, only to light it up and guide his team to victory. You can learn more about those games by clicking the card in the upper right corner. From Houston Oilers quarterback Dan Pastorini in the 1978 wildcard game against the Miami Dolphins, to Dolphins quarterback Bob Griese in a 1971 game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, where he went from the hospital to the field on the same day, there are some great games that live on in the history of the NFL. And this story from Daryle Lamonica deserves to be remembered, although technically, it was in the AFL. In a 1969 game against the Cincinnati Bengals, Lamonica did the impossible, and put in a performance for the ages under the most improbable of circumstances. And this is the story behind one of the greatest moments in the Mad Bomber's career. Before I talk about the game and the performance in question, we need some context to understand just who Daryle Lamonica is, and how he was playing entering this game. Obviously, by this point in the 1960s, Lamonica was one of the most feared quarterbacks in the American Football League, and it's not too hard to see why. In 1967, which was his first season with the Raiders, he was named an All-Star and a first-team All-Pro while going 13-1, while leading the AFL with 30 passing touchdowns, and while being named the AFL Player of the Year by the Associated Press, becoming the first and only player in franchise history to ever receive that honor. And he followed that up in 1968 with another great season, where he went 11-2 while throwing for 25 touchdowns and 3,473 yards, both of which ranked second in the league behind John Hadl of the San Diego Chargers. As a side note, to learn more about the legendary career of John Hadl, another AFL legend who doesn't get the respect he deserves today, click the card in the upper right corner. When you're one of the best quarterbacks statistically in the league over the past 2 seasons, and when you've gone 24-3 as a starter in that stretch, winning an insane 89% of your games, people are going to have high expectations for you the following season. But what might be crazy is that the 1969 season was looking like Lamonica's best. Better than the previous year, where he almost led the league in yards and touchdowns. Better than the year before that, where he was named the AP Player of the Year. He was that good in 1969 that this might have been the best year of them all. Through the first 12 weeks of the season, Lamonica kept up his winning ways, as he was 10-1-1. He threw a touchdown pass in every single game, and had 30 touchdowns through his first 12 games of the year. Keep in mind that the all-time record in pro football, held by Y.A. Tittle of the New York Giants in 1963, and George Blanda of the Houston Oilers in 1961, was 36 touchdowns. So Lamonica had an actual realistic shot of tying or potentially breaking the record with 2 games to go. And he was coming off of a great game against the New York Jets, who were the defending Super Bowl champions. As the Raiders went on the road to Shea Stadium in a rematch of the 1968 AFL Championship, Lamonica proved himself by completing over 67% of his passes for 333 yards and 2 touchdowns, while posting a passer rating of 117.1 in a 27-14 victory. He also tacked on a rushing touchdown just for good measure. Lamonica was incredibly good, and I think that goes without saying. Many people were even going as far as to call him the best quarterback in the AFL. And again, it's not too hard to see why, considering the success he had from both an individual and a team perspective. But that lone blemish on the schedule, the lone game that resulted in the Raiders losing, and the lone game that truly stunned the football world, well, that came in Week 8, when the Raiders lost 31-17 to the Cincinnati Bengals. And to be honest, the game wasn't even that close, as the Bengals led at 31-3 midway through the fourth quarter before 2 garbage time touchdown passes by Lamonica. The touchdowns and the garbage time numbers make Lamonica's performance look somewhat more respectable on the box score, but nothing's taking away from the poor completion percentage of 47.8%, and nothing is taking away from the 5 interceptions he threw that day, which was the most he had ever thrown in a game in his career, and would remain forever as the most interceptions that he ever threw in a single game. Fortunately, because the Raiders and Bengals were in the same division, which was the AFL West, Lamonica would get his chance at revenge, because on the second to last week of the season, and on December 7th, the Raiders would get to host the Bengals in the penultimate match of the year. And aside from the obvious revenge factor, this was a really big game for the Raiders. Yes, they entered the game at 10-1-1, and yes, they had clinched a playoff spot by this point, so the Raiders were going to be playing playoff football for the 3rd straight year, to the surprise of literally no one. However, they wanted home field advantage, and wanted the easier playoff matchup, and the Kansas City Chiefs were right on their tail for the division lead at 10-2. The Chiefs were only half a game behind, so the Raiders had no room for error over the final 2 weeks of the season, especially against a struggling Bengals team that hadn't won a game since that upset over the Raiders. If the Raiders were going to win this one and keep their hold on the AFL West heading into the final week of the 1969 season, and the final regular season week ever in AFL history before the merger happened, then they were going to need a strong performance out of Daryle Lamonica. They needed the man under center to do something. The 5 interceptions he had against the Bengals over a month ago, the last time the teams met, was simply not going to cut it. The good news for the Raiders entering this game was that it was looking incredibly unlikely that Lamonica would repeat that performance. The bad news, however, was that it was looking incredibly unlikely that Lamonica would even get the chance to repeat it, because he was not going to play in this game. At some point during the Raiders-Jets game the week before, Lamonica took a shot from a Jets defender. We have no idea what the play was, as there were no reports about the specific play, nor is there any video evidence of said play happening. However, Lamonica got injured so badly on the play that he injured his back. His back was feeling incredibly stiff, and that's not a good feeling for any person to have, as generally speaking, we don't want to be in back pain, and we do not function well as humans when we are in back pain. But for a quarterback, especially one who needs to move around and who is going to take shot after shot from opposing defenders, that's really not good. Things got so bad that according to one report, head coach John Madden reserved a room in a local hospital for Lamonica to check into, although this report was denied. Still, the fact that the rumor was floating around shows you just how much pain he was in. And on Saturday, that rumor became way more than a rumor. Because on Saturday, December 6th, literally the night before the game, Lamonica checked into the hospital. Even though his back got stiff in that game against the Jets, he was trying to find a way to work through the pain, and he was practicing. Heck, Lamonica was known for playing through pain, and he wasn't going to let anything stop him from stepping onto the football field if he could do something about it. Earlier in the season, he went to the hospital for flu treatment the night before a game against the San Diego Chargers, and wound up winning the game 24-12 while throwing for 3 touchdown passes. It's not like Lamonica hadn't played through pain before, as even though he was still feeling the after effects of the Jets game, he was going to try his best to fight through it, and to start another game at quarterback, which would have been his 13th of the season out of 13 possible games played at the time. But something happened during practice, because when he was throwing that day, his back was extremely knotted up, and at that moment, Lamonica went to the hospital. From there, the pain was incredibly brutal, as he was in no physical condition or shape to even move from his hospital bed to the bathroom, let alone play in a game. As Lamonica later said, "It was doubtful I could even dress for the Cincinnati game, let alone start. They put me in the hospital, gave me muscle relaxers, but I didn't sleep at night. Sunday morning, December 7th, I couldn't even get out of bed." That's right. Lamonica's back was so bad that he couldn't even get out of bed, and did not have the strength to do so. When your starting quarterback is saying that, and is in that much pain, it means one thing if you're a head coach. You better prepare for someone else to start. Yet, this is what Lamonica was known for. He was known for a lot of great things, but part of why football fans across the country loved the man was because he played through the pain. He toughed it out. He even considered it a badge of honor of sorts to be playing and fighting through that many injuries, and not only play, but play at the highest level that the AFL brings to the table. As Lamonica would say on this whole process, and how he dealt with the rash of injuries he had around this game, just fighting injuries, I didn't think I had a shot at it. It's kind of a total shock. It's one of the highest honors you can get, a tremendous honor. This is all a fancy way of saying that Lamonica was going to find a way, sore back and all, to not only get out of bed, but then play in a game against a defense that completely shut him down a month ago, and play well. Lamonica met with one doctor that Sunday morning, who brought him over a light punching bag. Lamonica began to punch the bag, and after punching this bag for half an hour, the doctor was ready to clear him, as the doctor said that he couldn't do any more damage. And when you give Lamonica the call to play in the game or ride the bench, he's going to take that first option every day of the week, and in this case, twice on Sunday. While all this was happening on that fateful Sunday morning, a nurse came into Lamonica's room and told him, "You may not even get out of here today." But Lamonica, pain and all, did not want to be confined to the room of the hospital. He wanted to be confined to the football field. And Lamonica, carrying a grimace with his bad back and all, said to the nurse, "My first touchdown pass will be for you." And with that, Lamonica, after spending Saturday night in the hospital and being in excruciating pain to start off Sunday morning in the hospital, with one nurse flat out telling him that he might not be able to leave the hospital until later in the week, he left the hospital and went down to the Oakland Coliseum. The fact that Lamonica was even going to play in this game after starting that day in a hospital bed of all places was remarkable. But the craziest part about this performance? The Mad Bomber was truly a madman, because on this mild December day, not only did the Raiders get their revenge and win it 37-17, returning the favor by crushing the Bengals, but Daryle Lamonica had yet another incredible game to remember, especially in the first half. Oakland had the lead from the very beginning of the game and never looked back. In the first quarter, Lamonica hit Warren Wells for a 51-yard touchdown to make it 7-0 Raiders. And at no point did the teams ever tie, or did the Raiders relinquish that lead, because from that point on, it was all Oakland, and especially all Daryle Lamonica. He connected with Wells early in the second quarter on a 16-yard touchdown, which made the game 14-0. And before the end of the first half, Lamonica did it again, and hit Fred Biletnikoff on a 16-yard touchdown to make it 21-7, giving the Raiders a 2-possession lead. This game was a dominant performance all the way around. The Raiders had 26 first downs compared to just 10 for the Bengals, meaning that the Raiders had more than 2.5 times their total. The Raiders had 309 rushing yards compared to 102 for the Bengals. The Raiders had more than double the passing yardage at 235 to 108, and had 544 yards of total offense compared to 210 for the Bengals. And whereas Cincinnati's passing game struggled and couldn't get anything going, with Greg Cook going 5 for 15 while completing 33% of his passes with no touchdowns, 1 interception, and a passer rating of 35.1, which is worse than if he did nothing but spike the ball into the ground on every single play, Oakland's passing game was the exact opposite. Because Lamonica, bad back and all, really came to play on this day. By the time the game finished, Lamonica had 3 passing touchdowns, which was 3 off of the all-time pro football record, and definitely made this an achievable and attainable goal heading into the last week of the season. Lamonica's 3 touchdowns, all in the first half, marked the 6th time all season, and the first time since week 9 a month ago that he threw 3 touchdowns in a game. He somehow found the strength to go deep, as he averaged over 9 yards per passing attempt, which was over a full yard per attempt above his season average. And he was doing this while in extreme pain, and while receiving heat pad treatment during the game just to try and make the pain go away. As Lamonica said on the aforementioned injury that caused it, "We were just having a slight drill. I went back to throw and got this bad pain. I couldn't believe it. I must not be living right or something." But despite all that pain, he delivered and then some, and put on a great performance while guiding his Raiders to a victory, just as he had done many times before. Daryle Lamonica had an absolutely incredible NFL career, and I think that goes without saying. But of all the 151 games that Lamonica played in the regular season, and of all the 13 playoff games that Lamonica played in, perhaps no game exemplifies what kind of a player Daryle Lamonica was more than the 1969 game against the Cincinnati Bengals. On Sunday morning, he was in a hospital bed in awful back pain, unable to even get up at first. On Sunday afternoon, he threw 3 touchdown passes and made the average fan watching completely unaware that he was playing hurt, because he couldn't tell. What Daryle Lamonica did on this day and in his career was nothing short of remarkable, because on this December day in 1969, when it came to his insane decision to play in the game, the Mad Bomber truly looked like a madman. Get your official Jaguar Gator 9 merchandise by going to jg9shop.com, and be sure to like this video, ring the notification bell, and subscribe down below if you haven't already, as it helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check out Twitch every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL Trivia and win cash prizes. Link in the description below. If you want to see videos like this condensed down to 60 seconds, then follow me on TikTok at Jaguar Gator 9. To see college football videos, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To see highlight videos of players throughout the history of the NFL, subscribe to JG9 Highlights. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.